What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, man, I wanted to showcase the 4 helicopters you can get here in Arma Reforger. Technically, there's only 2 if you are talking about different types of helicopters, but each helicopter, which is a Huey and the Hind, have a subclass helicopter, and so I wanted to showcase all 4 since there's 2 of each kind. So, we're going to start with the American helicopters, my personal favorites, and then we're going to talk about the other ones, which is the Hinds, which are my least favorite. In my personal opinion, I think they're just too big and heavy and slow. But these Hinds are definitely better for aerial combat. So, without further ado, let's hop in to the Huey passenger transporter. So we're just going to open it right here. I'm going to open both sides so we can kind of get an idea what we're looking at. So the thing with the Hueys is they're really light and they're really fast, but they do have a lot less protection. The transport is obviously far better for protection compared to, say, the gunship version, which is right here. Let's have it in first person, so we can see that this thing can sit upwards to, I believe it's 5 per side, so 10 individuals total. I think it's 4 here, and then 1 individual here, and then you have obviously your co-pilot and your pilot seats, and then we have another spot right there, and 4 more seats right here, so it should be, if I'm correct, 10 per side, or 5 per side, so 10 total, as well as a whole chunk of supplies and other stuff in the middle. I think these things usually hold upwards to 290 for supplies, so you can get a decent amount of supplies in the passenger helicopter. So some other things is you have obviously the propellers here at the top. You have your rotor. The engine is right here in the center for the Huey, as well as your tail. That's obviously going to be for kind of being more balanced in the sky. So hop in here in the pilot seat, and we'll get kind of an idea of what we're looking at inside. So inside right now we have obviously all of our gauges. These allow us to kind of see our evolution, elevation, as well as some of the other technology that's in here. Obviously some of these things aren't really necessary in game. I might do an updated video. I have a guy who actually works on helicopters in real life in my squad. He's a real life military pilot technician. And so maybe we'll do a future video and he can actually go through and show us as we're in the lobby together all the cool details inside. Because these are apparently very accurate to real life Hueys. But we can actually see here if we zoom in. For anyone that's interested, we do have, if I can look down, there you go. We do have a compass inside the helicopter for anyone that is curious. If you're playing this game and you're like, I can't figure out where the compass is, it's right here. So you actually have 2 different compasses. You have the main one, which is what I use right here in the center of your screen. You're seeing that with the little arrow right there. And then there's another one right here, but this one's really hard to see in first person unless you zoom in. So obviously not recommended. You just use the big one. And it's something I'm working with getting better with because navigating is kind of hard in this game. But obviously you guys can see there's a tons of other gauges in here. This one right here I believe is the AVL, like the how high you are, how low you are, as well as what degree you're looking. So like if I get up in the air and we're looking to the right, it'll kind of lean right, show you that you're looking right. It's really good for if you're looking at the actual thing, but for the most part I don't really need to see that because you're flying. And then even a bunch of other, like you can see your engine on, how fast you're going, your torque, gas, all that stuff is here for you. If I can get out of this camera, there we go. I didn't mean to get out. So some of the other things here, as we hop back in, some of the other things you guys can see in the cockpit as well as up here in the roof. You do have your searchlight, which is going to be the light on the bottom of the aircraft looking downwards. I don't find this all that useful because I don't like flying at night. I don't fly during the nighttime. I just wait it out. And then, as most pilots do in this game, if you notice, is we all pretty much like silently agree not to fly at night. You also have your dome lights. Dome lights are basically just going to turn these lights on that are right here, and as well as I think there's one in the front that looks towards you. And then you also have your navigation lights. Navigation lights are going to be these right here. It's going to make them all look green at night. And then we obviously have the engine started. We can turn it on, and you guys can kind of get an idea of what we're looking at. So when you first turn it on, the aircraft does, you can tell, spin kind of slow, but it gets very rapid very quickly. Um, And right about here is when you're going to start getting some uplift. You're actually going to see it start to lift on its own at some point. Um, Usually it's a sign that she's ready to go. But a lot of times you can pick up early. You can see here how it's kind of pushing up on its own a little bit. And we can just kind of lift off when we're ready. So very easy to take off. It's not hard at all. So that is the passenger transport. So over here, the next one up we have is going to be the gunner, the gunship. So in real life, we won't consider this a gunship. We would just consider this an attack transporter, I believe is the proper way of describing it. But in game, we don't have an actual gunship like an Apache or a top. I think it's what Viper would have been Vietnam era. We don't have those quite yet, at least on the console versions of the game. So everyone just refers to this as the gunship, all right, or the Huey gunship if you're talking about if you're trying to decide whether or not you want the Hind gunship. But everyone just calls it a gunship. It just makes it easier. We know what that means when that call out comes across the radio. Hey, we need a gunship at this location. That's usually what people mean. So the gunships are exactly the same as the troop hand transports, except the doors do not close on the gunship, unlike the passenger transport. One as well as the gunship has two M60s with I believe 5 mags total, with about 500 rounds each mag. So you're looking at a couple thousand rounds, but you're gonna burn through those, especially if your gunners are really lighting shit up. You're gonna really burn through those, which can resupply everything at helipads at any location that you can build those. We're gonna hop into a turret here, and again, you guys can see the perspective of a turret. So the thing with turrets is you guys can see here, third person is not the strategy because you're clipping through the aircraft, just the way they have cameras in this game. And first person does have a pretty good wide of scale of view. You can look straight down almost and kind of look up. And side to side is relatively good. Your gunners are going to be wanting you to be as even as possible because your line of sight is going to be like this, and there is bullet drop to these. So when you're in the air, think of it like this, right? You are a moving object, and your target's on the ground. If you're shooting at players, not just shooting at a chunk of land, if you're shooting at specific players, those are also going to be moving. So you guys are probably going to be moving in the same direction or the different direction depending on whatever happening on the ground. So that's two moving objects, and one object's trying to hit the other. So your gunners are going to need to be even, so that at least if you're moving, they can kind of better gauge their shots ahead of time. So if you're turning and rotating a whole lot, your gunners are not going to be able to hit their targets as much. This is something I struggle with too, and just keeping the helicopter even and kind of at a nice pace that they can actually gun. In this game, if it's AI, you can pretty much do that, you're fine. But if you're fighting Soviets and the Huey, you're going to find yourself having a lot of problems with keeping it even because the RPGs are extremely accurate. So if you're when you're gun running, you're going to be low. So what I would recommend for any new players is to do gun runs fast and do burst. So go low fast and have your gunners just do a pop 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 burst. So like for example, if say there were going fast over a target, go kind of like this, and then stop, and then do it again, again, and again, and again, and kind of just keep going back and forth doing burst. That way, at least you're consuming ammo a lot less. You're being more efficient. You may not hit all your shots, but that burst is going to be enough to make them put their heads away and give you guys on the ground a chance to be more aggressive. So that is the gunship for the Huey, and that is the transport for the Huey. Again, all the controls of everything else are the exact same. So over here, we have the Hinds. And let me tell you, the Hinds are awful in every sense of the word. Awful. So the Hinds carry a lot more players. These things are more meant for troop transports. Even the gunship one, which is what I'm looking at right now, this is the one for here is the regular troop transporter. So for the purpose of this video, we're going to be looking at the gunship one for the Hind. So we can hop in here, the pilot seat, show you guys the front of it. All right, inside the pilot seat. Inside the pilot seat, you're going to take notice there's a lot of differences between the Hind and the Huey. The biggest difference is there's a seat in the front, there's a gunner seat in the front, and there's your co-pilot. So you will have 4 people in the front of your helicopter in the Hind. In the Hind as well, you can take notice that you have a lot more controls on the ceiling versus in the front near you, because in this helicopter you have more individuals in the front, so having a dashboard in front of you is not feasible. Otherwise, you would lose access to that front gunner seat. So everything's above you now, and so on the right side of the aircraft we have the dome light. That dome light's again they're going to do the same exact thing as the Huey. You're going to turn all your lights in the cockpit on, which is going to allow you to be able to see. I usually use the dome lights if I'm stationary on the ground, especially if I'm waiting out the nighttime, which is usually when I need the dome lights. So I can just talk to the guys in the helicopter, see what's happening. And it's just, I don't really find the dome lights all that useful or annoying. They're kind of just mid tier. And in the middle here we have the navigation, the not navigation, sorry, the engine start switch. Obviously, you can just press the button on your controller, which is why a triangle for me on PlayStation. But if you're being a milsim guy and you want to do it realistically, then you would have to come in here and you look up straight here. And then above me on the left-hand side is going to be your dome lights again. You have two options on either side to hit dome lights. In front of the passenger or the co-pilot seat, you're going to see a taxi lights. This is just your landing lights, which I believe the Huey has too, but if they do, I haven't quite figured out where the button is for those. But in here, it's very obvious. And then below us, we also have anti-collision lights, which are very nice, which I don't believe the Huey has. And then we also have the navigation lights, which is just switch down with your D-pad, and navigation lights will be there. Which navigation lights just make it, I think this helicopter is also green, if I remember correctly. One thing as well to the left, we have another pair of taxi lights to our left here, and you have a get out option on the left-hand side of your driver's seat. Something that this helicopter does have, I didn't explain in the other helicopter, is the lock control feature. So that's my bad on that. So we're gonna go into that right now. So each pilot has, a co-pilot and the pilot have both access to the steering wheel. Would that be the good term? I don't know what the term is for it, but the basically the way to steer it, the controls, to put it lightly. But obviously, you're not going to want your co-pilot to control it while you're flying. So if you have a guy you can't trust, say you're worried that the co-pilot might try to steal a helicopter from you when you're mid-flight, you can literally look at his controls and lock it. If it says locked, he cannot gain access to those controls any longer. It will reset if you leave the helicopter. So if you are on ground and you dip out of the helicopter, say you're going to repair, um, he can grab controls and will unlock for him. As well as I believe, I don't know how it is if you pass out. I know some people say it doesn't work. I haven't been passed out and have my pilot alive still. Usually if I'm shot at and I get unconned, usually the co-pilot is also unconned, but from my understanding, you might have to unlock it before that happens. So maybe get a co-pilot that's trustworthy. I've been using trustworthy co-pilots, so I usually keep it unlocked because they're usually navigating, but I usually keep it unlocked. Anyway, let's jump into the front gunner seat real quick, just so you guys can see it, and then we'll head into the back of the helicopter. So the front gunner seat on this helicopter is far better for if you want to do a nosedive gun run. This is also shooting a PKM, I believe. So it's a much beefier LMG than the M60. And it has a much better fire rate than, in my opinion, than the M60. The M60 is kind of slow in comparison to this. You can do a lot more rounds a lot quicker. And I believe these are also 500 rounders, I believe, and you get 4 in the front and I believe 4 in the back, while the M60, I believe, is 2 on each side and then 1 backup, I think. Anyway, the front gunner can obviously see pretty good left, pretty good right, can look kind of has a really bad down angle on the front, but it has a decent up angle, so if you're dealing with Hueys, it's going to be a good way to counter that. And that is the pilot seat in the cockpit. So let's hop into the passenger. Now, the passenger seats, you can see here, I believe each of these is 2 players, so you can get 4. It should be another 2, it should be 4 on that side. I think it's like uppers to 11 or 12 people can sit in here. It's a decent amount. And then you guys can see in the back, we have another rear gunner, which we'll hop on that right now. The rear gunner doesn't have as much visually high access gun, but it does have a better lower gun. So you can do a lot of good low run strafing. So if you're going over a camp and you want to hit it from above and you're using this Hind, make sure you're putting the ass end of the helicopter, having that gunner be the one to do the majority of the gun running, because he's going to be able to see straight down. Like if I was in the air right now looking down, I would be straight down, which is very helpful. Which is why this helicopter is oftentimes picked for gun running by a lot of players, and why the Soviets really don't need all that many helicopters in the air for the most part, especially if they're trying to wipe out objectives, because they have access to quicker vehicles. Like their vehicles on the ground are much faster, so they don't need to be transported through helicopter deliveries as much. And when they have a gunship, they usually only need one because they can be more precise in their gunship running. And these things are a little more beefier, so these things, I think the Hind does take a little bit more shots than that. But let's get on out here, and I will show the storage. I believe this carries the same for resources. No, so this carries double. This carries 400, so you can stack 400 resources in here, which is great for someone who is trying um, to do supply runs. So if you capture some objectives during the beginning of the game, will have Hinds spawned. Recommend keeping those and repairing them and using them as supply runners for as long as possible. So let's go over the outside of the Hind real quick, kind of like what we do with the Huey. So first thing is the Huey has its fuel on the left-hand side near the back door, I believe it is. This gun ship and the regular transport ship for the Hind have their fuel tanks right here, these little belly rolls, little fat rolls on the side. The engines are kind of on the back, but kind of on the front, more front so, but you can see there's kind of an exhaust right there as well. You have your propellers. Now on the Huey, we only have two propellers. On the Hind, you have 5 propellers, so this thing has quite more propellers in terms of what it has. The wing, the tail, that also has 3 instead of 2 like the Huey, so it has a little more, has 1 extra wing, or tail wing, sorry. And then as well as it has the wheels. Now let me show you guys one thing that I think is important, because a lot of people forget this, and something I've had to learn. So when you take off with the Hind, let's just start it up a little bit. There's going to be something called an X at the bottom of your screen, which you see in the bottom left hand side. That X says release brakes. You do not want to release the brakes until you have enough thrust to get off the ground, because, and I'll show you this here, for example, if we tap the loose brakes, I don't know if it'll do it now, but a lot of times what's going to happen is you'll actually roll out of the way. I think I actually did it perfectly this time around, so it depends on how you release brakes. If you start it up and then you release the brakes immediately, you should start the roll. Don't do that. You want to wait and have your brakes on as long as possible before taking off. So taking off with the Hind is a little slower. We'll land here, and I will show you the difference between the Hind and the Hilo. The Huey is a lot quicker to take off, and it has a little bit more breathing room just due to the pure fact of it has no wheels. So the wheels are helpful in their own right, but as you actually see, right now it's moving. You can see the wheels are moving. Because I didn't put the brakes down. So if you start the Huey up real quick, you'll take notice that the Huey is a lot quicker off the ground, which I think is a big reason why I personally like it. It's much quicker to drop in, drop dudes, get the fuck out. It's much safer in the grand scheme of things. So you can tell here, just taking off is much quicker. It's much more limble. It doesn't feel like you're a slug, and you're able to do tight corners with it. You can do a lot of guys that do barrel rolls and stuff with helicopters do the Huey. It's just a lighter vehicle in general, and it's much smoother to drive. You don't have that big thick tail or thick body that blocks your view. So overall, much preferable. Well, let's land over here. Oh, don't mind all this stuff too. I've been doing some testing, I have some videos planned. I'm thinking about putting together a Game Master storyline or fight scene. So if you're interested in that, leave a like, subscribe down below, so I know that you guys are interested in that. But yeah, those are the 4 helicopters in Arma Reforger. So again, these are the 4 default helicopters that we have currently. I do know of a few that are apparently modded helicopters that are coming if mods become accessible on console. That being the Black Hawk helicopter, as well as the Cobra. I said Viper earlier, but I think it's a Cobra, as well as an Apache, and I think another Soviet helicopter, and also I think I've heard about the SEAL Team helicopter that's often used in SEAL Team movies. That's like the little bird is often known as in video games. It's called the little bird, and that's also apparently is accessible coming as well. But that's just gonna be a thing. We'll have to wait and see if it comes or not. But with that being said, I have tons of videos coming soon to kind of go over all the other cool stuff that's accessible here. I want to go over all the buildings and all the different types of vehicles and stuff. So if you guys are excited for that, let me know down below. Without further ado, man, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Later.